All right, we are live once again. We are here for another weekly book read, um, continuing our Monday adventure with my dad's book called Laugh to Live. You can see it on the side of the screen over there. We are on chapter number 6, and chapter number 6 called Leaving the Nest. Last week we went ahead and we read first the quotes as usual, like we've noticed before. There are some quotes at the beginning of each chapter. So the first one is called, or it's not called anything. The first one is just Mrs. Happy's advice. You've done a lot of talking, and despite the fear of the sex talk, I know with great certainty the hardest thing in the English language that a parent will ever say to their kid, goodbye. And that's from Mrs. Happy Ducey. And the next one is I take my children everywhere, but they always find their way home again. And that's from Robert Orban. Okay, so now moving into the nitty gritty of the chapter. We're getting into the meat. All right. I used the two quotes above from opposite perspectives in order to introduce an extra fun lesson. What to do if your kids never want to leave the comforts of your home. While good parents throughout the animal kingdom strive to provide a safe, loving environment for their young, they also strive to prepare them to leave the nest. While I feel that my wife and I did quite well at the first part of the equation, part 2 obviously suffered, judging by the results. As our hers and mine grew to include ours with the addition of a son and then a daughter, so by necessity grew our living space. Soon after our return to New Hampshire from the Florida adventure and subsequent bankruptcy, we realized that we had a serious dilemma. We needed to house a family of 7 with a credit rating decimated by the bankruptcy. Needless to say, we were not flooded as we are today with daily offers of pre-approved credit cards and mortgages. We managed to convince a nice couple who were downsizing to lease us their large country home with an option to buy after 2 years. Now, this was a sprawling home with 4 bedrooms upstairs, a bedroom in the basement, and 2 family rooms, including one huge room over the entire 2-car garage. The plan, of course, was to use this roomy nest as the nurturing launch pad for our children as they sequentially graduated from high school and cut the cord, right? The plan seemed to be on track, as my son, who lived with us part-time and with his mom part-time in California, opted to pursue his post-high school career in California. The plan continued as our oldest daughter went away to college, got homesick, moved home, reconnected with a former high school interest, followed him to a Nebraska Air Force base, his career, married, and had 2 sons of her own. Right on track. Not. So, we were down to 5 remaining in the house. Then, our middle son, in his junior year, meets a female high school dropout, falls in love, drops out himself, and moves out. Now we're down to 4. For years, our kids had wanted a dog, but asthma problems with our oldest prevented that. So, with the numbers dwindling, we decided to add a beagle puppy named Mocha, which I immediately spoiled rotten, so much so that my wife ever since has referred to him as the Dick Dog. Next, the Air Force decided to send our son-in-law to Korea for a year. No way could our daughter survive that year on her own with 2 young ones that far from home, right? No problem. Big house is just begging for occupants, and besides, grandparenting is only fun when you're close enough to spoil them. So, our oldest daughter moved home with a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. Now we're back up to 7, where we started. Oh, plus the Dick Dog. By now, dropping out didn't cut it, so middle son asked to come home. What's a parent to say? Of course. Now we're at 8 and going the wrong way. Next, our middle son met his true love online and eloped, ran out of the money, and we bought their way home from somewhere out west after he sold his broken car to an Indian for $1. They settled into marital bliss in our basement, and we are at 9 and counting. Oh, yeah. And the dick dog. Mocha. I miss Mocha. Finally, the Korea tour ended, and our Air Force son-in-law arrived temporarily while they prepared for his next assignment. 10. Well, they say that timing is everything. Fate delivered the solution to our exponentially expanding family situation. My wife and I were attending Project Safeguard, a wonderful program for 7th graders and their parents, featuring speakers on subjects such as drug and alcohol abuse, teen sex, and internet dangers. One speaker, I forget his topic, dropped the following helpful tidbit, in jest, I'm certain, which became our salvation. Every time one of your kids moves out, downsize to a house with one less bedroom. Eureka! Genius! The next morning, my wife and I calmly announced to the gathered tribe that we were putting the house on the market. At that moment, the implications of such an action did not hit any of them. Imagine their surprise when we accepted an offer the day after the house went on the market. Remember those days? In fact, a house to our exact specifications went on the market at the same time in the same community. The owner couple had a child and expected more and wanted to upsize. Perfect. We arranged a joint closing and literally traded houses. What are we to do? Cried the crowd. Well, oldest daughter and her clan expedited their plan for our son-in-law's new duty station. Oldest daughter and her clan expedited their plan for our son-in-law's new duty station, and youngest son and daughter, still in high school, realized they still had legitimate claim to a bedroom. Since the new house only had 3 bedrooms and an unfinished basement, middle son and new e-bride saw the handwriting on the wall or the text on the monitor. He graciously offered to finish the basement to include, you guessed it, a bedroom. This idea was quickly squelched, citing our need for storage and room for my workbench and tools. We did offer that he and e-bride could live in the small front living room, but with no alterations. This last stipulation was key, since the room had an open archway entry with no door, and the windows on 2 sides of the room had only sheer drapes. Bless their hearts, they were troopers. They actually attempted that living arrangement for all of about 2 weeks, but, alas, open-air living does not suit newlyweds. They found a place, and we were back to 4, and going in the right direction. Then, my youngest asked if we could make one small adjustment. Could she get a kitten? A kitten? Are you kidding me? I had been a dog person since I could walk. All I had ever had was dogs. Dogs were friends. Cats were aloof and prissy. One can't be a dog person and a cat person, any more than one can be a Republican Democrat. So, what was I to say? Of course you can get a kitten. Of course you can get a kitten, sweetie. And thus we became grandparents once more. Welcome aboard, Jester, a.k.a. Garfield. Now, as most of you probably already guessed, all of my preconceived notions about cats were wrong. Jester first befriended the dick dog. They became best friends, and she won my heart. Of course, when youngest headed for college, Jester stayed with us. We actually pulled off the downsizing trick one more time. Following my youngest son's graduation from high school and seeming desire to remain with us for all eternity, we had promised our youngest daughter that we would not sell and move again until she graduated from high school. As the end of her senior year approached, we had purchased our retirement condo in Florida, so we placed the house on the market. True to our word, We closed on the sale only after she graduated, but only 2 months, by only 2 months. True to our word, we closed on the sale only after she graduated by only 2 months. She went off to college. My wife preceded me to Florida, and I rented a 2 bedroom condo for my last 6 months prior to retirement, allowing youngest son allowing youngest son that trans allowing youngest son that transition time. A few months after my retirement, having told this story more often than my kids thought necessary, it came back to haunt us in a funny way. Our youngest daughter, perhaps our most sensitive, was home from college on a visit. We were joking with some family and company about our plans to travel the country to visit our kids and grandkids, at times of our choosing, rather than have them descend on our peaceful Florida abode. We talked of buying a motorhome and parking it out on a rotation schedule in the driveway at the homes of our children. Without hesitation and without hint. Oh, what's going on? Something's going on with the connection. We were doing okay. Hang on, technical difficulties. Huh. I don't know why it's dropping frames so much. Why is it doing that? There we go. All right, we're back. I don't know what happened, but we had a little bit of a hiccup there with the Wi-Fi, it seems, but we're back. All right. So we're back to, I don't know how far back I might go back, like a paragraph. All right. A few months after my retirement, having told this story more often than my kids thought necessary, it came back to haunt us in a funny way. Our youngest daughter, perhaps our most sensitive, was home from college on a visit. We were joking with some family and company about our plans to travel the country to visit our kids and grandkids, at times of our choosing, rather than to have them descend on our peaceful Florida abode. We talked of buying a motorhome and parking it on a rotation schedule in the driveway at the homes of our children. Without hesitation and without hint of a smile, the youngest daughter says, "In that case, I intend to have a very short driveway." All of this reminds me of my wife's father's assessment of grown kids and grandkids' visits. Before he closed the door when the visitors were leaving, he would proclaim, "Glad to see you come," and after closing the door, he'd laughingly add, "Glad to see you go." In reality, we never bought that motorhome, and all of our kids and grandkids have subsequently been here to Florida to walk the beaches. Further, we actually paid to move middle two sons to Florida, go figure. The parenting saga continues, and I suspect it will continue until that magical time of transition when our children miraculously begin to take care of us. Hopefully, someday, that is the goal. Sometimes that happens gradually, or it may happen suddenly, necessitated by some traumatic event. I just hope I live long enough to see it. But just in case, we recently purchased long-term care insurance. Okay. let's move on. I think we might go ahead and read chapter 7. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to read chapter 7 as well. So, chapter 7 is titled, I Laugh, Therefore I Am. And the quote for this one, once again, he started the chapter with a quote. The quote for this one is, laughter is the sensation of feeling good all over and showing it principally in one place. The author for that one is unknown. And before I start reading, he's got a little diagram on this one, a little photo that I'll share. Let me just switch cameras real quick. Come on. Okay, so he's got a little diagram right there at the bottom. Happy face equals good, sad face equals bad. And I dropped something there. Okay. So, chapter number 7. All right, let's get serious. Just kidding. But I do want to take a little time here to explain what I mean by laugh to live and humor in the workplace, creating a positive environment, my most popular seminar, which is also applicable within your family, school, and community. This explanation can be overly simplified as in the following illustration, and that was the one that has this smiley face good, sad face bad. So, happy face good, sad face bad. The rest is filler. In fact, that simple illustration encompasses most, if not all, of the theory about the goodness of humor and laughter to our physical and mental health. So, the rest of my message will be playing within the parameters of that illustration. One of the keys to the use of humor in any situation is the appropriateness of the humor being practiced. My favorite example of the inappropriate use of humor, in this case, in the workplace, is a Dilbert cartoon. Rest in peace to the author of the Dilbert cartoon. He just recently passed away within the last week or so. I forget his name, though, unfortunately. The pointy-haired boss is addressing his people and tells them he has decided to use humor in the workplace because experts say humor eases tension, which is important when the workforce is being trimmed. In the last block, he addresses one of his employees. Knock, knock, the employee replies, "Who's there?" With a smile, the boss answers, "Not you anymore." That is most certainly not appropriate use of humor by a manager. The purpose of my seminars and this book is not to help you graduate from clown college. It is not to help you be a better joke teller. It's not about an inefficient use of your time or a disregard for respect or authority. Finally, it's not about a disregard for the seriousness of the business you are in or your responsibilities in life to a family, community, school, workplace, and country. So what is the purpose? It's simply to share the realization of the value of appropriate laughter to your physical and mental health, and the fact that the goodness of wholesome laughter is indisputable. You need to know that it's okay to laugh and allow laughter by others at the natural humor that occurs daily in your business, school, home, and community. You should accept the fact that laughter is a natural stress reliever, which, when practiced properly, creates a positive environment of increased efficiency, attendance, and retention at work and wholesome, positive living at home. As leaders, managers, teachers, and parents, you must realize the value of a sense of humor in your life's toolbox, your role model repertoire. As powerful as the message is about the value of wholesome humor and laughter, so also is the realization of the dangers of inappropriate humor. There is no place for sexist or racist humor at work, school, home, or the community. That type of humor is debilitating to an organization and to a family. In addition, use of such humor by a leader is a time bomb. in that it can resurface at any time and undermine any previous good works. While not as bad as sexist or racist humor, sarcasm is another practice which might be harmful to its target. Sarcasm can be particularly debilitating in schools and is a close second to bullying and potentially ostracizing the targeted student. The best practice concerning the use of anything bordering on inappropriate is, when in doubt, leave it out. I delete humorous emails every day that, at first glance, appear funny and beg to be forwarded. However, if there is the slightest chance that they might hurt an individual or group, I opt for delete. It is funny. I find that in business, most employees realize the value of humor and laughter and do not hesitate to use it. All they need is occasional guidance on appropriateness. Managers, however, seem to use and respect humor less the higher they get in the organization. During the years, I taught my humor course at Lockheed Martin. I actually had employees submit training applications for their bosses without the boss's knowledge. Please work on him. In my work with middle and high school student programs, I find the situation very similar to the workplace environment. Most students will naturally use humor and simply require a bit of discipline as to when and what is appropriate. The most respected teachers are those that embrace and nourish the students' use of appropriate humor and use humor themselves to emphasize their message. The same is true in the parent-child relationship at home. While humor and laughter are not a cure-all, they do help us avoid the need for Peanuts character Charlie Brown's defense mechanism. I've learned to dread one day at a time. No one should have to face life with that approach. What exactly is a laugh? What are the mechanics involved? What happens to us physically and mentally during and after laughter? Another activity I use in my workshops is to have people take a few minutes to try to define laughter. The wide spectrum of their definitions reflects the difficulty in grasping the laughter phenomena. In his book, Laugh After Laugh, by Dr. Raymond Moody devotes an entire chapter to this elusive definition. He splits his findings into two areas, physiological and psychological. I particularly liked two very old attempts to define the mechanics of a laugh cited by Dr. Moody. The first, by Sir Francis Bacon, was relatively short. Laughter causeth a dilation of the mouth and lips, a continued expulsion of the breath with a loud noise, which maketh the interjection of laughing, shaking of the breasts and sides, running of the eyes with water, if it be violent and continued. Dr. Moody's second example, from a turn of the century scientific journal, shows the futility of the definition exercise if taken too seriously. I have taken only the first few sentences of what was certainly an exhaustive attempt. There occur in laughter, and more or less in smiling, clonic spasms of the diaphragm in number ordinarily about 18 perhaps, and contraction of most of the muscles of the face. The upper side of the mouth and its corners are drawn upward. The upper eyelid is elevated, as are also to some extent the brows, the skin over the glabellas, and the upper lip, while the skin at the outer canthi of the eyes is characteristically puckered. The description goes on, detailing the actions of the nostrils, cheeks, pineal muscles, arterial vascular system, dermal capillaries, and lacrimal glands. Lacrimal glands. I don't know what that is. If nothing else, this writer certainly proved that too much research makes Jack a dull boy. Oh, dear Lord. It is far easier to simply relish the joy in laughter and to appreciate the obvious, that laughter is the opposite of every negative emotion. It makes your heart race, increases your oxygen consumption, working the muscles of your face and stomach while relaxing the rest. You feel wonderfully lightheaded, and that you may laugh till you cry. In the extreme, laugh till you pee your pants. In the extreme, laugh till you pee your pants. Norman Cousins, in his book Anatomy of an Illness, equated laughter to internal jogging. So, I want you to take a pause right in the middle of your next real belly laugh. Okay, after. Dry your eyes, close your eyes, and ask yourself, what just went on here? Or you may choose to just go on laughing. For after all, as I said earlier, life is a series of choices. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end that right there. We read 2 chapters. Next week, we're going to continue with chapter number 8. It's actually book title name drop. The title of the next chapter is called Laugh to Live. So thank you all for joining another weekly book reading, and we will see you on the next one.